In this video I'm gonna show you the structure of the transfer table, and I'm gonna show you as well how to select a whole set of files so you can push them to your servers. So for that I have selected all the high resolution files that have been transferred today. And as you can see, there are 91 files found with this filter, and you can navigate those 91 files with these navigation links. The transfer table contains all these fields that I will explain, and you can order any one of these fields by pressing once or twice, and you will get them in ascendant or descendant order. And at present I have ordered them by this field, which is the time step, as you can see. The first field on the table is the status. So you will see a green tick when a file has been transferred to your server with no problems, and you will see a red cross when there have been any errors during the transmission. And this column is actually quite useful, because if there have been any problems with some of your files, and you had, let's say, 300 files, it might be difficult to see which ones have produced an error. So if you press here once, you will order them by the ones first that had no problems. If you press twice, you will see the files that have created a problem during the transmission. The next field is the host, which is the server where we are sending the files to. Then we have the schedule time, which is the time at which the files are due to leave from our machines. The start time is the real time at which the files leave. And if you see any differences here, it might be in principle because of the time it takes to make a connection and to open a socket. The finish time is the time at which your files reach to your server. The target is the file name. This is the time step, as I told you before. This is the percentage, which will show how far the file has transferred. So 100% means that the file has completed, but during the transmissions you will see the percentage increasing if you reload the page. This is the transfer rate. It's expressed in bytes per second, but if you hover over this number, you will see the rate as well in kilobytes per second. The status is the same as I explained in my previous video, which is described over here. The priority is a field that we configure in the requirements. So let's say that you have two files that are due at the same time, as you can see in the dissemination schedule, because they have the same time step. You could configure different priorities to give a priority to one of them. The lower the number, the higher the priority. By default, the priority is 99. If we don't configure anything, over here is 10. And what we do in this case, because you will see that these two files have the same priorities, that we configure parallel connections. So these two files will go at the same time, as you can see here. So one remark: if these two files were of a big size, and even if we configure parallel connections, they might take longer than the interval between the dissemination steps to transfer. So in that case, the next files would go into the queuing system, and that's when the priorities would take effect. So in those cases, you will see that the schedule time and the start time are different. These are some action buttons. So the first arrow will allow you to download this file to your own computer, so you can save the file to your hard disk. The next arrow will allow you to requeue the file and send it to the server that you have configured in this destination. The next arrow will increase the transfer priority by 1 unit to this file, and the next one will decrease the transfer priority. The select star is to select individual files. You can select them and if you press it again you can unselect them, and I will show you in a minute what you can do with that. And finally, this little red arrow will send you to a different page where you have all your selections. Let's now trigger the transfer for a selection of files, and I have now moved to a destination when there is a set of standby products, which, as I said, these are files that are produced but are not sent to the destination, which we usually do for test files. So if we move down a bit, we will see that we can do selections with these links in here, and this particular one we select all the files that this selection has, which are 48 items. This one will unselect all of them, and this one will do a reverse selection. So let's say that you were interested in all the files except step 3, step 9 and step 18. You can do then reverse the selection and get all the other files. Let's select all the files, and we can now then go to a transfer selection page. If we click here, it will select all the pages, and what it means is all the pages as displaying here, which includes all the 48 items. If we go to the selection page with this arrow, it will only select the first 25 files that are displayed only in this page, as we can see over here. So this is the selection page. To go back to our selection, you would come here, and let's choose all the 48 items that we have found in the standby subset, which we can do with this button. And we have now the 48 items. So coming down a bit, we will see all the actions that we can perform with this subset. And I start here. This will continue the selection to go back and select some more files. This will clean the selection if you had done a mistake and you wanted to start again. This one is quite useful. It will extend the transfer lifetime of the files in EasyPDS. As I have explained in previous videos, the daily files by default have a 3-day period of lifetime in the cache. So if you wanted to increase the lifetime in EasyPDS, you can just press this button, and that would increase by 1 day the lifetime of the files. You can check that here. If you press in one of the files, you will see that the expiry date, which is the date that indicates when these files will disappear from EasyPDS, has increased by 1. So let's continue with this selection. In here you could set up a priority for all the files. So at the moment the priority is set to 50. If we enter here a different value, let's say we wanted to put a higher priority, and if we press enter, then the priority will change for all this selection. If you wanted to increase by 1 unit, you would press here, or to decrease by 1 unit, you would just press here. This arrow will requeue all the files that we have selected, and it will send them to your host. So let's do that. It warns you whether you are sure to requeue all these files. Let's say OK. And then you can see that the transfers will start to operate. And we can see now that the files are in the queue, and they are being transferred at the moment. And if you refresh, you will see how this transfer progress. And finally, the stop button would stop the transfers from going. If, let's say, you had done a mistake and trigger something, you could come back to the selection and stop the file transfers.